Alongside Brian Hayes here in studio, Craig Button joins us from Calgary. Gentlemen, 10 days to the NHL trade deadline, less than 2 months to the start of the Stanley Cup playoffs. The Leafs are currently on the longest active win streak in the league at 7 games, but that doesn't mean they don't have some question marks. Hazer, finish this sentence. The Toronto Maple Leafs won't have a chance in the playoffs if they don't
solidify the goaltending position. Make sure that the goaltending is solidified going into the playoffs. And that doesn't mean acquire someone between now and the trade deadline.
I was going to say, they got 3 now.
But they got to make sure that one of them is the standalone number one. If you're going in there thinking you have a tandem, I think that's a recipe for disaster. That doesn't mean you don't have a separate ticket, a lottery ticket. Let's say it's Ilya Samsonov. He's got between now and game 1 to determine, I'm the guy, I can exude confidence, I can bring confidence to this team. If it's not going to be him, it better be Joseph Woll. I don't think they're going to acquire anyone between now and the trade deadline, but I think ultimately the goaltending has got to be clarified between now and game 1 because, as you know, Craig, we can talk about everything else we want to. Depth forwards, depth scoring, what's Matthews going to do, Mitch Marner, who's going to play with Morgan Riley. If they don't have goaltending, it's all moot. It will kill you in the playoffs if you do not have goaltending. They need to know exactly what's going on with that position come game 1.
Goaltending hasn't hurt them in previous playoffs. What has hurt them is lack of scoring to a certain extent, but that's not their biggest problem. The blue line's not strong enough. Simple as that. They need reinforcements on the blue line. They got that until March 8th when the deadline comes and goes. And if you can acquire a defender, and a really good defender, I'm thinking guys like David Savard. We've heard about Chris Tanev. We've heard about Noah Hanifin. Yeah, they're good. David Savard. Look what he did for the Tampa Bay Lightning. I think the Toronto Maple Leafs have to make a trade like they did when they acquired Jake Muzzin. That was a difference maker. That was a trade that was significant to the fortunes of the Toronto Maple Leafs. Listen, the goaltending can play out and we can figure out where it's at. That blue line is not good enough to compete against the best in the Eastern Conference. And if they don't improve that, I don't like their chances at all.
Well, again, the way to possibly fill out some holes on the back end, Craig, goalie has to stand on his head. Might have to stand on his head. Might have to do what Bobrovsky did last year. It's a difficult proposition, but every once in a while that's going to happen, and it might have to happen here in Toronto.
I think you need a much stronger goalie than one of the 3 the Leafs have in order to compensate for their lack of blue line effectiveness. So Brad Treliving is facing 2 major issues. One is identifying the Leafs' biggest need, which is something you guys just try to take us through right now. The other is the real lack of assets when it comes to having picks and prospects in their system. Craig, are you comfortable with the Leafs trading away what's left in the picks and prospects in order to solidify their blue line?
Absolutely, I am. Bottom line is you've committed. You fully committed in every single way to Matthews, Marner, Nylander, Riley, Tavares, in every single way. First-round picks are not going to help this group. Easton Cowan's not going to help this group. Fraser Mitten's not going to help this group. If you're committed to this group, then you better go out and you better help solidify it and strengthen it and add to it. And if you want to sit back and talk about the future, you're not dealing with the present. And guess what will happen at the end of the season? Oh, yeah, we believe in the core 5. We believe in what we have here. Listen, to me, you want to be bold, you want to go out and you want to talk about how good these players are, and they are good. Then it's about going out and not worrying about the future. Worry about the present. There's a price to be paid for winning. And there's also a price for holding on to the future.
Yeah, I look at it the opposite way, Craig. I mean, this season is not, at the end of this year, the Leafs don't cease to exist, right? Austin Matthews is committed long-term. Nylander's committed long-term. And you're right, they're committed to these guys. I think it's time these guys drag them to the promised land. It's not going to be the 4th defenseman, the 3rd centerman. It's time for Matthews, Marner, Nylander, Tavares, Morgan Riley, whoever's in net, Sheldon Keefe, to drag them there. And I know every team is different. Every run is different. The Florida Panthers literally made 0 moves at the deadline last year. 0. And I think Bill Zito said, I went out and got Matthew Tkachuk. You do it. I've committed to Barkov. You do it. Ekblad, I'm committed to you. You do it. Bobrovsky, we paid you. You do it. I think it's time in Toronto. You go to the big boys and say, you do it. It's time to drag this team somewhere they haven't been in a long time.
I don't think it's been a problem. I look back to the 2019 Tampa Bay Lightning. They set it on fire. They had Vasilevsky. They had Hedman. They had Kucherov. They had Point. And what did they go and do? They recognized they weren't good enough. So they went out and they addressed it. And they addressed it in a significant way. Barclay Goodrow and Blake Coleman. Oh, yeah, first-round draft picks and prospects. They did the same thing in David Savard, Brandon Hagel. Bottom line is, it's not about 5 players. This team on the blue line isn't strong enough to compete against the best. And that was true at the beginning of the season. I'm not so sure that was the case after Bill Zito made his big move in the offseason to get Matthew Tkachuk. Bottom line for me is they're just like Tampa Bay in 2019, not good enough despite having the star power. If you want to just put it on their shoulders, no team wins in this league unless you have the depth on the blue line and up front.
I love where this is going. It's like a great hand of poker. Craig's going all in, and Hazer's saying, no, I think I'll just call. Pretty soon, the Leafs will have to show their hand once again.